welcome everyone. I, Gauravi Kumari, will be taking you along today for another inspirational pharma journey. This is the Humans of Pharma platform by Pharma State Academy, which is focusing on different pharma stories, which are based on one's pharma career, one's pharma journey, current affairs, and book discussions. This is the eighth episode of the Pharma Journey Series, Direct Dil Se, where we'll be having heart-to-heart discussions with pharma leaders. It is my honor to introduce you today to a distinguished senior pharma person, Mr. Prashant Menon. With over 25 years of corporate experience in the pharmaceuticals industry, Mr. Prashant has held various roles spanning from frontline sales to marketing and general management. In the last decade, he has led companies as their managing director, with his work sphere covering all the top leading Indian MNCs and a Spanish MNC. Prashant Sir's key strengths lie in the strategic alignment and focus, building leadership teams and organization culture, managing diverse product portfolios, complex and large operations, commercial and manufacturing, and business development. He is driven by people centricity as the core in driving change in teams and organizations at large. His ability to pivot sustainable growth mindset organization is unparalleled. With two postgraduate programs in marketing after a bachelor's degree in microbiology, Mr. Prashant is a visiting faculty at NMIMS Institute of Management in Mumbai since 2017. He has also received 3 international coaching certifications from the ICF Marshall Goldsmith Coaching and the Global Coach Group, making him an executive leadership and team coach. Sir is a recipient of the top 100 marketing influencers in 2016, recognized by World Marketing Congress. He is a member of the Leaders Excellence at Harvard Square and a Global Leadership Assessment 360 Assessor by Marshall Goldsmith. Not limited to this, he is a valued speaker and moderator at various national and international forums and management institutes in India, sharing his experience and learning with audiences that range from working professionals to students and faculties. His insights into the pharmaceutical industry and his people-centric approach to leadership make him a true visionary and a role model for aspiring professionals in this field. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Prashant Menon as we dive into an enlightening conversation about his experiences and the future of the pharma industry. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here today.
Thank you, Gauravi.
Let's move on to knowing more about Prashant sir through a series of questions. And I'm beginning with the first one. Sir, as someone who is very well known for the leadership as a mentor and as a coach, how do you envision yourself in this pharma industry after a career spanning for more than 25 years?
It just sounds a little older, but yes, it's been a journey of great fortune. I think I've been quite fortunate and blessed to have this wonderful journey in the corporate world for close to 27 years. Now, for the last 2+ years, I've been on the other side supporting organizations, leaders, and teams to grow and to realize their vision. I mean, this is a part of my version 2 that I'm a part of, being the founder director of a managing consulting company as well as a pure play coaching company. What has happened is that I'm learning a lot more in the last 2-3 years, is because the role demands me to know a lot more. The role demands me to be a lot more versatile. It also requires me to be very updated, because that's what my client partners really want from me, and that's what people who engage with me really look up to me for, those kinds of insights. So the way I look at it, in the last many years, probably the last 5 to 10 years of my career now, what I keep doing is I keep dismantling whatever I know or whatever I think I know. The whole approach is to look at things afresh, look at things more holistically, because this is what people want. This is what people expect you to really bring to the table. And it's been quite fascinating that every block of 5 years, I've seen different versions, different avatars coming up, and one needs to be prepared to be willing to wear a new hat and wear a new cap, so that you are looking at things in a manner that can be very contemporary, that can have the tradition, but it also has the blend of modernity. And that's what I think today's companies, today's leaders, today's brands and customers really demand out of each other. So that's been, in a nutshell, the journey that I'm trying to play after having played a little stint in the corporate, now getting into the other side, supporting corporates, enhance their vision and their goals.
Wonderful, sir. That was very, very inspiring. So, my next question for you would be, how do you define authentic leadership? And what are some of the key characteristics that you believe are essential for effective leadership in today's dynamic world?
This is quite vast. This is quite vast, and every leader will have their own version or every story to it. For me, staying true to oneself and exploring your potential is a very ideal way to be authentic. I mean, the way you look at, authenticity is staying very honest with what you are. And because what happens is, this whole muscle of authenticity starts building over time. The way I look at it is, in the first decade of one's career, you generally learn to look at a lot of people around you. You look at a lot of leaders. You generally try and adopt the styles that they do. And as you try and adopt the styles, you try and copy those styles. Somewhere in between, you start adapting to a certain blend of leadership that is known to you. So that very typically happens in the first 10 years of anybody's career. You are quite overawed by people around you. Some people impress you a lot more than others, and you tend to be like them. And when you tend to be like them, you tend to copy it. And as you start copying, you realize that some things fall into your scheme of things, some things don't fall into your scheme of things. The one that falls into the scheme of things, which are very natural, are the ones that builds into your system. And as you now move to the second decade or the decades later, that's when you will find that your ability to reproduce that style of leadership becomes a lot more natural. It starts getting into your veins and your blood, that this is the way I would like to keep operating. This is the way I would like to keep letting people know that I wish to operate in this manner. And this is what becomes your identity. This is what becomes your identity. And for me, this is what authentic leadership starts building up. So it doesn't build up in the early part of your career. It starts building up after you've gained certain levels of expertise, experience, learnings, failures. As this starts coming into your system, you start building up this authentic leadership very, very strongly into the way you really behave and the way you act. Today, I would look at where has effective leadership changed. We all know that the last 3 years, people have learned to be a lot more compassionate in the way they look at things. There is a huge amount, or there's a huge premium on the kind of people and the kind of community work that you can actually do. So if you start serving people better as a leader, and that's where in the last 5 to 10 years, the servant leadership concept became very, very popular. If you learn to start serving your team and the people, your stakeholders better, I believe that's what is going to be a lot more relevant. And that's what is going to be a lot more influential in this entire journey of being an authentic leader.
Just cannot agree more. And those were such valuable words. Thank you for sharing. Now, sir, the base is always how personal changes can affect us professionally, right? So, what is your earliest childhood memory that you can recall clearly? And how do you see your personal and professional development from childhood to adulthood to now being a successful and well-known pharma individual?
This question, when you all gave me an insight that this is what you would like me to touch upon. And there have been a couple of instances in the last maybe 3-4 years that I try to look at my journey, right from my young days. And I somehow or the other do not really have a lot of strong memories of my childhood from what learning impacts have happened. But for everybody, that's the formative years. That's the formative years, and it does play a very, very strong role in the way you look at. Right from my childhood till I finished my education, I moved 4 different cities. And I also, apparently, I think my entire graduation and my post-graduation, I completed in 8 different, let's say, institutes. So that's quite a journey, right? So you can imagine 4 cities and 8 institutes. That's been the kind of journey that I've had. So what it has taught me very early on is that I got to constantly stay adaptable, because I'm every third year, fourth year, I'm getting into a new environment. I'm trying to meet new people. And when you are young, it takes time to make good friends, and it takes time to understand people and environment around you. It takes its own time. So making new friends and getting adjusted to the present has been very deep rooted in me. So that has stayed very strongly as I passed my journey. So right in till the time I finished my graduation, it was 2021, 8 institutes, 7 institutes, add my management, it became the 8th institute. There was quite a few things that actually came up. So what has worked around that whole aspect for me today is that I'm extremely happy to make new connections. I'm quite comfortable making new connections, and that's happened because of my early, childhood days where I kept moving cities and institutes. As I kept moving from organizations, I kept learning from the experiences around. I kept being observant, and that has been very, very instrumental in the way I started looking at things. Even in my career, if I look at my 27 years of corporate career, I have worked in 8 different organizations. So if I look at it, in fact, I have an unfinished article, which is the power of 8, which is 8 institutes and 8 companies, and I was actually going to have some 8 learnings. So that's an unfinished article, and probably this interview slightly provocates me to complete it maybe sometime later. So but the whole aspect that I've tried to look at is 8 different organizations, and I think I have been fortunate to work with some fantastic leaders, fantastic colleagues today who are all doing extremely well in whatever they are pursuing. Many of them in the industry, some of them outside the industry. They actually started helping me ground. So my early career in the corporate, the first 14, 15 years I spent in just 3 organizations. 16 years I spent in 3 organizations, and that I very firmly believe are the foundations of what I am today. It really made me a well-rounded individual, open to learning, open to challenges, open to being uncomfortable. Those are things that really helped me. And later on, when you spend a lot of years sharpening your functional skills, you start getting into the soft skill aspects a lot more. So while you have to be good at what you are, whether it was sales or marketing or handling teams, you then start gaining greater expertise, let's say a greater horizon to the way you look at different stakeholders in running an organization. And these helped me very strongly in the last 5 years of my career. So in the last 5 years of my career, almost I was heading companies, and these learnings that I had in the first 23, 24 years actually paid off a lot in the last 4, 5 years. I mean, it made me a lot more humble. It made me a lot more, thinking the team first at all points of time, because you are what your organization is all about. I mean, there is nothing that as an individual you can stand out and be. So everyone has their childhood bearings very strongly getting influenced. And for me, those bearings of being adaptable, being open to new connections, being open to learning, being open to being observant, these help me in my professional journey as well. So it's been exciting. I still love to make new connections and keep looking at things that are happening around me. That element of curiosity, continues to be there. You do tend to play it safe a little later as you are, more than 20, 30 years in experience, because you have a feeling that you know it all. And that probably is the beginning of an alarm bell that I think you need to cut that thought and go back to dismantling what you know and be open to learning newer concepts, newer people. And it's a journey that continues, and I look forward to continue to dismantle what I know and hopefully learn better.
Yeah, as they say, like change is the only constant. Like this is absolutely amazing to know that despite being on the move all the time, you have excelled in everything that you did.
I don't think it's an Excel, but I just think that I've been trying to put my best foot forward. And what you should not ever stop doing is, putting in the effort, because uh, things may not go your way, and things very often have not gone my way. But if I look at a larger picture today, you can always be wiser, right? When you passed and done something, hindsight always gives you a different learning. So when you start looking back at these things, you may be able to know that, okay, these things I did right, these things I didn't do right, and those are the kind of experiences that you share with the younger people, or the people who reach out to you, that, what should I do? So you may not guide him on what he should do, but you can certainly share with him what happened to you. And if he picks up a leaf or two from that, he might make one less mistake than you did. So that's what finally helps the opposite person.
Okay, sir. Now looking back onto your life, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Many, many. I think there are quite a few actually, that I will. And the best part is, while I may not be able to give it to my younger self, but I will try and give it to my current self, because I can still keep, sharpening the axe, as they say. But if I have to look back, I mean, what could I have done more? I mean, one, for sure, I could have read more. I could have written a lot more. I could have experimented and created a lot more. You tend to have greater courage, a greater lack of fearlessness, or a lack of failure. You have much greater amount of that flexibility when you are young. But as you are more cautious and you look around people, you don't want to make the mistakes, you tend to be more cautious, and that may not be good. So today, if I have to look back, that's one thing that certainly comes up. The second that comes up is, uh, I should have made more connections and learned from them, right? We use that word very smartly now, called networking, right? Networking is the buzzword today. But during my young time, I was connected, but probably I would have been more connected towards my work and my function. I would have not been connected towards learning as an agenda. So today, connection, besides getting your work done and learning, you can also do to get something new. And that's where I think I should have, I would advise my younger self that the courage to be more expressive and assertive. I said that sometimes, not to go on the wrong side, you tend to be more cautious. But over the years, I've learned that, because today, when I look at young people like you, uh, you guys are far more assertive and a far more confident bunch. I mean, having 10 years back, I don't think I would have been very comfortable taking up interviews of people, because it's not easy. I mean, for you who may not have even, maybe even a 5-year experience, uh, you are today utilizing opportunities which I think people like us would have been a lot more hesitant. So that would be another message for my younger self, is to have the courage to be more expressive and to be more assertive. And finally, be ready to stay uncomfortable. Because I kept moving, because I kept changing institutes and, companies during certain times of the year, I wouldn't say that I was very comfortable in what I was doing, and hence I went to move ahead and try something new. But even where I've spent in long time, there would have been times where I would have been comfortable doing a particular pattern of work, and that sometimes can stunt the growth. If you want to get growth moving up, you got to keep yourself, uncomfortable, and you got to allow yourself to make those mistakes, so that, it can help you to become a better professional, a better individual in the long run. So these were, there are quite a few, and I think if I have to filter some, then these would be some of my, advice to the younger, Prashant, that I would have given.
Valuable suggestions, sir. And I'm pretty sure that all the young professionals who are watching this will definitely learn a lot from this. Okay, sir. So moving on, my next question would be, how do you balance the demands of being a consultant, executive coach, and a mentor while still maintaining a focus on your personal growth and development?
I'm yet to find the right formula for this, but I am constantly trying, and it's a very interesting piece of work that I'm doing now, because each of the roles that I play, I mean, I basically divide my work into three parts. I'm consulting and supporting organizations. I am carrying out a lot of leadership development workshops and programs. Okay, and this would be to the business level people, the sales and the marketing level people. I'm also an executive coach and mentor. So each of these three functions are very different buckets, and uh, I need to consciously make an effort to spend time in each of these three buckets. So what I generally do is, for me, there are three buzzwords that I remind myself is: one, keep staying disciplined; keep planning better, and keep leveraging your networks. So when I keep being disciplined and I keep being planned, it actually helps me to leverage a lot of power that I can to really connect with people and learn more and contribute more. So that's something that's very, very important. And how I do this is, in each of these three buckets on a weekly basis, I try and spend time, working on these three areas. So whereas if I'm getting into consulting, then I need to know more about the companies, the problems that they are into. How can I look at things a little differently? What are the patterns of the markets that they're operating in? Look at their data points, ask for them in terms of data, study the data. So that's one piece in terms of consulting, let's say, organization. In leadership development programs, what I generally focus on is try and understand what are the current themes that are very relevant for leaders today. One, from my experience, I know that there is a list of things that are important. The second is to validate that list. Is that list relevant for an organization today? If that list is relevant, then how can I make it a lot more attractive, a lot more retentive, so that people, when they undergo the workshop, when they undergo an intervention from my end, how can they practice it immediately? Because if they don't implement what they learn, then it's just another checklist item. So that's something that I really spend time on. And the third bucket is on the coaching part. On the coaching part, constantly, keep yourself updated in terms of various coaching techniques. Listen to a lot of senior coaches. There are a lot that's available today on the net, and when you keep hearing people, you actually learn to get a lot more better at your art of coaching, and that's where I spend the time in all these three buckets. The way I generally am looking at myself, probably I'm somewhere close to 50% of trying to drive my level of preparation and my balance. There's a lot more that I can achieve, and if I know I can achieve that, then the clients that I work with will be certainly the greatest beneficiaries of this whole purpose.
Truly commendable, sir. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Now, sir, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you, what are some of the names that you would recall as your inspiration, and whether from the family or friends or at workplace? If you'd like to share with us.
Yes, more than names, let me be honest that there are many people who really help you directly, indirectly, as you grow up and you continue to work here. Family certainly is one of your biggest supporters and motivators. I mean, they are there very unconditionally trying to support you, and for everyone, that plays a very, very strong direct, indirect impact on us. Because if that portion is very well in place, then I think it helps you leverage your other stakeholders better. So that's very, very important. Number one. Number two, each of the leaders that I've worked with, each of the teams that I've worked with, what has been a common template amongst all of them is that they all offered a different perspective that compels me to think better. They all pushed my thought process, pushed my understanding of things, understanding of them, so that I can really bring out the best that is there. So in the corporate, a lot of my leaders, a lot of my peers have been very instrumental in the way I have learned my art of being what I am. A lot of national leaders today, if you look at the world, a lot of national leaders have been very, very significantly helping me envision a larger campus. Because today in corporates, you have a limited understanding and a limited vision. But the minute you expand and remove your boundaries and go beyond the corporate structures and look at nations, look at national leaders, they very often urge you, nudge you to start looking at things that are limitless. I mean, today, if you look at the way a country like India is making progress, and on all fronts, we know that there are problems across, right? Even a small corporate has problems, even a large nation has problems. But despite that, the ability to dream, the ability to envision a future that is going to be more promising, I think is something that really is an inspiration to me. So for me, that's another great trigger. What constantly keeps me inspired are real life stories. I am not a fiction guy. I am an extremely hardcore, truth-loving guy, very rational, very logical, very practical in the way I think. Because uh, my dreams also are dreams that when I talk to you, I will make it believable and I will make it doable. Right? I may not give you a dream where, okay, let's assume that we are having this interview on cloud and blah blah blah. There are people who do that beautifully. But what I actually am inspired is by a lot of real life stories, because there I can relate to the possibilities. And when I relate to the possibilities, I know that these are doable by people like me or by people who have limited or equally high, let's say, resources. So inspirations come in certainly from family, from colleagues, from bosses, leaders, managers, national leaders, and overall a lot of real-time stories. I mean, I am a big fan of real-time stories, and for people who follow me on the social media, you will find a lot of glimpses of that in my posts. I mean, you will see me picking up things that are day to day, which you and I can relate to, and then we can go and do it. You will not find me giving you something that's not relatable.
And sir, I'm pretty sure that all our viewers are pretty privileged to be learning these things from you right now.
I hope I'm just able to bring a little more perspectives to people, try and help them think a little, because people today are well equipped with a lot of things around. I think what is needed for all of us, including people who are going to be hearing this, is that how do you choose what is right for you? Because there is a plenty of options available, it can be very confusing at times. Very, very confusing, right? I mean, we have a data overload, and because of that, what we need greatly is high clarity. And when you have high clarity, I think you'll be able to really cherry pick what you exactly need. When you cherry pick what you need, outcomes are fabulous. Outcomes are fabulous.
Yes, so very well said. Because these days there's a lot of content out there, and we have to be very careful about what we consume. My next question would be, as someone who has worked with many different organizations, what are some common mistakes that you have seen leaders make when it comes to managing people and building organizational culture?
Leaders make or no, I don't know. I have made a lot of these. So I will stick to things that me and my teams have made as as leaders in various let's say sized businesses. When you operate a lot in silos, when you operate in your own fiefdom, you generally don't get stakeholder inclusivity. And what is important today is we still are operating, quite a few leaders are operating in silos. And when you operate in silos, you are missing out on a great stakeholder engagement and involvement. So one, make stakeholder inclusivity a very regular feature in your leadership style. The second is, leaders sometimes are a little uncomfortable to jump into trenches. Okay, now when you say jump into trenches, what I'm telling is that as you move higher, the lowest possible work tends to become not your job. You have a lot of people in the hierarchy to do it, 100%. We're not telling you to jump hierarchies, but wherever needed, how will you coach and mentor people? You will coach and mentor people by jumping into their trench and actually telling how it is to be done. And when you show them the way to do it, as a leader, it gives you an idea that you are ready to roll up your sleeves and just get on to a work that you would have done probably 10 years back. For all you know, that you did 10 years back, and today there is a difference in the way of executing the job. And that will keep you relevant. That will keep you updated on what are the pain points of people in your teams right till the frontline level, right till a shop floor worker. You got to stay connected with a lot of larger and a lot of newer audiences. Leaders are not only operating in silos, but leaders very often operate in known groups. And when you operate in known groups, your knowledge is very limited to that group. everything that the group does is what you think is the best that is happening or the worst that could happen. But when you start looking beyond that, it will start help to challenge your older thinking process. So leaders need to move to larger and newer audiences. And the fourth that I would look what leadership should today do for organizations, as I'm spending a lot of time with companies and 60-70% of my work are all long-term work. I don't do a single project. I work with them over a period of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, 3 years today, right? And what happens here is that you got to develop your team, no doubt. But I would put a premium on developing yourself first. Whenever you talk to leaders, there is a common understanding or a statement that comes, my team needs to do this. My team needs to do this. So somewhere I get a feel is that this gentleman or this lady is somebody who probably is extremely good at it and the team is not doing it. But it may not be the right answer. The answer is that probably the minute you start to develop yourself, you start seeing a huge change. And let me quote an example of one of the most famous and most profitable airlines today is the Singapore Airlines. Okay, so the Singapore Airlines, when I was reading a little article about them, they spend 4 months on induction of any new recruit into the system. And this is 2 times the average compared to any other airline. So other airlines would spend around a month, 45 days to 60 days, and they spend close to 120 days to 160 days. That's the time that they spend, number one. Number two, they spend 40% of their time, if they have to look at a 100% bucket, 40% of the time is spent on coaching and motivating people, is on training people. Another 40% of time is, another 30% of time is actually spent in reviews and process. You review the process, you review the operation. And the last 30% of time is actually generated to find out newer ways to do things, newer ways to improve their search. Now, if you look at the way we operate quite a lot, is completely the reverse. We will spend 70-80% of time on processes. Processes in the sense reviews. Let me call it reviews and not processes. We will spend time 80% on current. Very little time, if time permits, if budget's there, then I will develop and train my people. So we think that by giving incentives is a way to motivate people, 100%. But are you allowing him to earn those incentives if you don't train him well? And for me, that's why this 40-30-30 that Singapore Airlines does is extremely relevant even in the Indian markets for us in pharma. Look at companies who spend time on training. Look at companies who spend on coaching and developing their leaders. Those companies are always at a better place. Even within an organization, managers who do that, their teams are far more stable and successful. So this is very, very important in today's organizational culture, that develop yourself first and then develop your team. Because when you do that, processes and numbers will come up the way you want them to come up, and they will be sustainable.
So that was a very, very intriguing case study. And I am pretty sure all of our viewers will learn a lot from this. Okay, so now the last question for today, but definitely not the least. So how do you balance the need for strategic thinking and planning with the importance of being present and engaged with your team on a day-to-day basis?
Very important for every profession, whether you are a leader or whether you're a team player. You're a team leader or a team player. This is very, very important because the need for strategic thinking is the one that will allow you to do new things. Otherwise, you are less strategic and more operational. As I said in the previous question, you spend 80% of your time managing day-to-day affairs. You are purely operational in the way you think. You're only looking at small linear growths. You can't look at exponential growth. So if you need to look at exponential growth, you've got to build in strategic mindsets. You've got to build in that strategic muscle within you, which will help you to drive that. What you need to do it is, how would you do it on a day-to-day basis? I mean, that's very important for people to understand. You ideally need to build a schedule around your priority areas. So you have got your priority areas defined or identified at work, build a schedule around it. And once you build a schedule, you plan and prepare for that schedule. A lot of times schedules are done, but preparation doesn't happen. And when preparation doesn't happen, the overall utility of such interventions are very average or very mediocre. But when you prepare better, you're able to contribute, learn, observe more. Otherwise, you're only busy trying to be reactive to a situation. You're not proactive because your level of preparedness has not happened in a strategic manner. What happens is when you are even better prepared and scheduled, there is greater rigor in your conversation and intervention. There is a lot more meat that comes out from certain conversations that happen. And after you've had those very meaningful, robust conversations, prepare your action plans with very, very dedicated accountability and timelines. Now, this again is a great missing component. In a day-to-day affair, when you're trying to build strategic agility in an organization, you scheduled around your priority area, you put a plan in it, you prepared as per the plan, you've had a great conversation. Now, after the conversation, what next? You've got to have your list of actionables, you've got to have your list of accountable people, and you've got to have your timelines for it. Now, when you have these three components put in, all it requires is designated follow-up protocols. When you have follow-ups on that actionable with the person in charge as per the timeline, there are very little reasons for you not to stay in control of day-to-day affairs. And when you are thinking well, you are also building that strategic muscle in you. And when you put both this thing into place, results are very different than what you would have ideally expected.
So thank you so much. And I'm pretty sure like the suggestions that you gave right now will be applicable in every field, like everything that you do every day.
Absolutely.
As we have come to an end, I would just like to thank you for taking out time from your swamped schedule and being with us here.
I'm always happy to be associated with Pharma State because there's always a different level of quality, a different level of engagement that comes in from this organization. And I think your whole concept of humans of pharma, I have been able to hear a few of the interviews earlier, and some of them are people known to me, and I'm quite it brings a very different facet of them, which you generally don't know, you don't get to know so easily unless you work with them for a long time. So it's a nice platform, and thank you so much for inviting me to this forum and to share my views. And I hope it's of some help to people. It certainly did help me to reflect and reiterate what I want to do further. So it helped me, selfishly speaking, very much, and I hope it helps a few more others.
This has been a wonderful one for all our spectators and for everyone who is watching. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode. Reach out if you have any suggestions for future episodes by connecting with us on LinkedIn and all our other social media platforms at Humans of Pharma or by email at humansoffpharma@pharmastate.com. Until we meet again, bye.